everybody online. We're gonna start seated, and then we're gonna lie down. This is a gentle yoga lunch break, and we'll spend a good portion of that lunch break relaxing on our back. But before we get there, we're gonna do some work for our neck and shoulders. So if you have a yoga strap, that will come in handy near the end. If you don't have one of those, anything that you can hold on to will work, or you can just hold onto your leg, it'll work out. But a scarf or a towel or a dog leash, any of those would work. And then if you have a blanket, that might come in handy, and you can sit up on the blanket now if it's more comfortable to sit on an elevated surface. Okay, so I'm gonna tie my hair up because sometimes when I do little neck things, I get my hair stuck in my armpit. Okay, so it's easier if it's up. You can adjust in whatever way is appropriate for you. Okay, so we're gonna first just start seated in a position that isn't too aggressive, too stiff, just a little bit relaxed. Take a couple of deep breaths. Just kind of let the morning go. Your body and just notice the right side and notice the left side. Notice if there's any difference between like the right shoulder and the left shoulder, the right hip and the left hip. There might not be any differences. It's just nice to come home and check in. Easiest for me to do that with my eyes closed, but you can certainly leave your eyes open. It's helpful for you. Some just little differences here and there. So as I'm moving, I might linger a little bit in some of the places that feel a little tighter. So you can stay with that as long as you like. If you're ready to move a little bit, we're going to drop the chin and let the head kind of roll over one shoulder and then back and roll over the other shoulder. Now there's a couple things that sometimes happen. Sometimes my spine will try to be helpful and come forward. Try to keep your spine neutral. And sometimes my shoulder will lift up to try to help. Try to keep your shoulders relaxed. So just going back and forth with the head. Now, as I'm doing this, I'm also noticing any places that feel extra tight. So we're going to come back to those. So do one more back and forth movement. Now, for today, my neck feels mostly even. I usually am a little tighter on the right side. That might be true a little bit, but mostly even. So I'm gonna do the same thing on both sides. So I'm gonna flip my head up to start, and I'm gonna start with the right side. So I'm dropping my head to my left. That may not look that way on the screen, so you can either mirror or do the right, stretch your right side out. And then I'm gonna reach my right arm out and just sort of let it rest. You know, I've got really short arms. So sometimes a block is helpful. I'm gonna use this blanket. So then with my arm extended, I'm just gonna roll my head a little bit up and a little bit back along this whole right side. And again, I might just do the movement. Really gentle, don't be aggressive. Or I might find that there's a little spot in here, there's a little spot right there that feels a little tighter. I can pause there for a couple breaths. And gently kind of come back to the movement pattern, and I found a little tight spot right there, so I'm going to pause there for a couple breaths. Back and do one more little movement pattern, and then I'm going to float then check it out. So for me, it feels like the right side of my neck is a little bit longer and my shoulders a little bit lower. If I were to measure them, probably not, but it feels that way. All right, so now I'm gonna do the other side. So I'm gonna take my head to the right. I'm gonna reach my left arm out to the side. And again, I have short arms. So it helps to have something to put my fingertips on, and you may not have this issue. So once I'm here, I'm gonna start to kind of rock, and essentially what I'm doing is lifting my chin up toward the ceiling and bringing it down toward the floor. So I'm just rolling through the range of motion in my neck. Looking to see, is there anything that feels a little tighter? And there's just that one tiny little spot right there that feels tighter on my left side. So I'm gonna hold that stretch for just a moment. And you would do this with any little spot. So I'm gonna come back to movement, and I haven't noticed any others, so I'm just gonna roll back and forth. But if you noticed others, pause with the next one. You can keep doing this through all of the spaces that feel a little tight in your neck. We'll take one more big breath here. Okay, so as a group, we're gonna come back to the center, but you can pause the video, do what you want if you're watching this on YouTube. All right, so now check in and see how everything feels. And now it feels a little bit closer to even for me. So we're gonna do some little movements with the shoulders. So the first thing I'm gonna do is hike the shoulders up really high and then let them fall. Hike them up really high, let them fall. It doesn't have to be aggressive, you just try to relax all at once. Good, one more like that. And then we're gonna do some little circles with the shoulders. So we'll go around. Squish the shoulder blades together in the back, and then pull them down and around. Squish them together, pull them down and around. One more like that. Then we're gonna go the other direction, so we'll squish them together, pull them up and around. Squish them together, bring them up. And see if you can, how high can I lift the shoulder blades and maintain that sort of squishiness? So sort of get into all these little muscles that live in that middle of our back. Feels good. Alrighty. Yogis. While we're here, we're going to do a little forward bend. So we're going to take the feet together like little butterfly wings. The knees are open. This is where the blanket might come in handy. And if not a blanket, a couple of pillows or yoga blocks, whatever you've got at your house. One under each knee would work. So if you've got a blanket, you can stick that through the center. And for some people, hands are big. For some people, having the blanket down near the ankles feels better, and for other people, having the blanket up near the thighs feels better. So you can sort of adjust where the blanket hits, which is why I like a blanket, because it's a little more forgiving. And then fold, and I just did this little thing where I just lifted one hip and then the other. It helps me get my pelvis to come forward without resistance. And then we're gonna do a movement in our back while we're here. So we're gonna softly let the back round, don't be aggressive here. Inhale, lengthen out the back. Now this, come up as high as you need to feel like your back is getting really long, okay? And almost back to that neutral shape, fold. And it might take you all the way back up to sitting to find that shape. So just let it round slowly, softly, without too much work, and then lift. Beautiful. Let it round, and then let it lift. Now, one of those two is more exciting for you or feels better. So you're gonna pick one. I'm like in the rounded shape. And again, I'm not gonna aggressively try to pull myself into that shape, just sort of allowing gravity to have me. And then my low, the reason I like this right now is because my low back is feeling just a little bit like it could use that stretch. So I'm just adding a little bit of a shimmy here, noticing the muscle, and then I'm gonna just breathe. Because when I breathe in this shape, I feel the muscles in my back stretch out. Make space for that breath. It's a really gentle way to release tension from there. One more big breath. Hold that breath in, come back to that neutral position in your spine, and then come all the way back up. All the way back up. And we're gonna let the legs go. Now I'm gonna keep my blanket handy, because I'm gonna use it in a couple of different ways. And the way that I'm gonna fold it, let's see if I can show you this. I'm gonna fold it, I folded it 3 times. So I folded it in half, fringes to fringes. Then I folded it, keeping the fringes together, in half one more time. And then I folded it in half, longest edges folding. And then I'm gonna fold it in thirds. That might be way too much instruction, but what it gives me is sort of a little long flat pillow. And this works pretty much for everything I wanna do. Now, if you just have a throw pillow, that would also probably work just fine. So we're gonna lie down and make sure your strap is within reach of your hand, okay? So we're gonna start with a little bit of shoulder work. Now, what you could do with the blanket to start with is use it under your head. So if you need a little head support, blanket might make a nice little pillow, like that. For me, I know I'm gonna use it under my hips, so I'm just gonna let it set out here to the side, along with my strap. Okay. So we're gonna take the arms and reach them up so that they're about parallel with each other and about like lined up with the shoulder, maybe a little bit towards the chest. And then we're just gonna lift as high as we can. You can just let your head relax onto the floor. It's possible some of us will have the strength to actually lift so far up that the shoulders come off the floor a little bit. Just let the head kind of go along for the ride, okay? Try not to strain the neck muscles to try to keep up with it. So we're just gonna lift, and come back down, lift, and come back down, lift, and come back down. Good. Now grab your elbows, and there's an arm that's on top. In my case, it's my left arm, so I'm just gonna notice that. Then we're gonna stretch up like we're lifting like we did before, come up over the head as far as you can go, and then come back, and we'll do that twice more. So lift up, stretch over your head, and come back. Lift up, stretch over your head, and come back. And then we're gonna switch which arm is on top and do it 3 more times. Lift, so I'm stretching just like I was here, and then all the way overhead, and come back. Lift and stretch all the way overhead. Come back. One more time, lift, stretch all the way overhead, and come back. All right, now, rinse out your arms, and we're done with our shoulders for our lunch break today anyway. Let's target our hips and our legs. So do a little bit of windshield wipers with your legs a little wide, so you get a little internal rotation, a little external rotation. And then you've got to pick a leg to do. So I'm gonna extend my left leg, let that guy rest. I'm gonna bring my right leg in. Now, if you can hold your right leg, great. If you can't hold the leg, don't worry about it. You can rest a hand or just let it hang out in space. So I like the hug feeling, but if you can't grab it, because I could barely grab mine. If my arms were an inch longer, I'd be in good shape. So we're gonna turn the foot in circles. Just gotta do what we can, yogis. And then go the other direction. All right, and then point and flex, because it just feels nice to release the foot. In the middle of the day, it's so nice. All right, now we're gonna extend the leg, but I'm gonna put the strap on there first. So first, I'm gonna take my strap, put it over my leg. Now, you can make a loop in your strap. You can just use the strap loose. If you use it loose, be mindful if you have metal buckles on your straps. I have accidentally hit myself in the teeth before. It's not that comfy. So we're getting a stretch in the back of the thigh, okay? If I rotate my leg a little bit that way or a little bit that way, it changes where I feel the stretch. So you can play with rotation, and then you can also bend the knee lower the leg a little bit, and I like to do a little more in my calf muscle. So I bend the knee a little bit and really pull my toes down and then push up through my heel. And then I get that stretch in my calf in a really nice way. So we'll stay here for about a little bit longer than another minute. So we stay with these stretches for about 90 seconds to 2 minutes. In that range, we get the best possible chance of actually getting some hydrating mechanism turned on. So we might get a little bit more synovial fluid in the joints, a little bit more of a, where there are muscles that touch, like in the back of the thigh or in the inner thigh, then we might turn on a little bit of the hydrating that goes on in between muscles, so they move over top of each other a little more smoothly. It seems that we need at least a minute and a half for that to happen. So we're going to give it about that long, about 15 more seconds here. Now, that being said, if it feels sharp or it feels like you're tearing something, you're going too hard. It's meant to be a very nice stretch, just at the point where you feel the sensation of stretch, okay? So now we're going to take the leg out to the side, and this is where I use the blanket. So I kind of tuck it in under my hip so that when I lower this leg out, I've got a little bit of support right there for my hip. It keeps the bony part of my thigh happy, and it keeps me from overdoing the stretch here in my inner thigh. You can also, again, bend the knee a little bit here. You can bring the leg back and hold it higher up. So that's up to you. And sometimes a little bit of movement is helpful. It's all still doing this pose. It doesn't have to be done in a static way for it to be effective. We just want to stay with the sensation right at that point where we just feel it for a period of time. We're about halfway through here. Take a nice big breath, and then we're going to come back to the center. Now, for this pose, you can use the strap and come across your body into a twist. I'm going to set my strap off to the side until I get to the next leg, but I'm going to take this leg and bend it and then bring the knee across, and that's how I'm going to do my twist. I'm going to put this guy under this side so that I have a little bit of support for that hip, and then I could put this hand on this leg, or I can just let the gravity kind of take me over. Now I've got a nice stretch through my chest muscle here, and I've got a nice stretch happening in this outer hip. And again, it should be a stretch that feels reasonable. You can feel it, but we're not being too pushy, too aggressive. Our bodies do not like aggression. Sometimes our minds think that's the great thing to do, but our bodies are never on board. Usually there's a kind of, like we can accidentally stimulate our fight or flight response. We can, you know, just in general create injury potential. So if we can be a little more gentle with the body, that's the idea. Even in power yoga. A little more gentle with the body. Okay, you guys, we're going to take a nice deep breath, and then we're going to come back to the center. Now, if you're still using your strap, you can set that off to the side. Give yourself a little, like, oh, just wiggle it out, a nice release. Oh. And then for just a moment, we're just gonna pause. So stretch both legs out if that's an okay way to be. And just feel. And again, you're noticing, does the right side seem like it matches the left side? And sometimes I think that this might seem like a waste of time, this moment that I'm taking right here, but it's not a waste of time. What we're doing is we're reinforcing the neural pathways that support interoception, which means those neural pathways that take information from my body and send it back up to my brain. And we have to reinforce every neural pathway, and that is one as well. And the thing that's true about that neural pathway is that it's also the same neural pathways that help us relax. So when we take the time to notice things, we are reinforcing those neural pathways that help us relax. So I scooched over a little bit so I'd have a little bit more room. So we're gonna grab a hold of this other leg and we're gonna hug it, or you can just let it hang out in the air, whichever's right for you. And then spin your foot in circles. I like getting a little ankle movement. As best I can, I do some that are as big as possible. Go the other direction if you haven't already. And then some that maybe are a little looser and more light. And then point and flex. And while I'm doing that with the ankle joint, I'm also trying to kind of spread the bones in my foot a little wider and squish them together. So I'm trying to get as much movement in my foot as I can get. Feet work hard for us, y'all. It's good to give them a little spa day. A little movement. All right, so now we're gonna stretch this side out. So I'm gonna get my strap back and try not to smack myself in the mouth with the buckle. Again, you can extend the leg out. And kind of play with, like, do I want it rotated a little bit? Do I want to concentrate on the calf muscles? Do I want to bend my knee a little bit more? Just play with your stretch a little bit. We're going to stay a while. Feels nice, doesn't it? I love these stretches for helping to release. The only part that we don't quite get to is the top of the thigh. We'll get to that in a little bit. It feels like my hip just relaxes really nicely toward the floor after these. Hopefully it works for you guys as well. So we're going to stay for about 30 more seconds. All right, so we're gonna take a big breath. And now the leg is going out to the side. And again, just make adjustments. You can bend the knee. You can add whatever little support underneath you that you like. And then I can activate this leg. I can activate my core a little bit to hold myself more stable. There's lots of kind of fun little extra things you can add on while you and your inner thighs are hanging out with each other. Take nice deep breaths, yogis. We've got about 30 seconds left. Alrighty, we're going to take a nice big breath. Exhale, we're gonna come back to the middle, and again, we're gonna go over into the twist. Again, I'm just gonna take my leg over without the strap, but you are welcome to use the strap. And then find that kind of nice chest stretch, outer hip stretch. Feels just about the right amount for you. Stay for about 30 seconds longer. Sometimes I do this pose 3 or 4 times during a day. It's such a nice pose. I don't know if you love it as much as I do, but gosh, it's nice. But we're gonna take one more breath of it, y'all. And then we're gonna let go with it. And come on back to the center. And again, just pause for a second, give yourself a little movement. And then stretch out if you can, both legs. And then just pause. And notice if it feels a little more even. Does that leg now feel a little longer? What happened? So we're gonna do one more move before we do a little relaxation. And this is called Dvipadipitham, which means we're gonna lift our butt with both feet. It's basically the way that translates out. But it's a movement pattern, okay? So we're gonna lift the hips up as high as we can lift them up, and then we're gonna come down one vertebrae at a time. Now when I say as high as you can lift them up, I mean safely. So some people can get all the weight on their shoulders. You don't want there to be any weight in your neck, and just make sure that you keep your head lined up so your eyes are pointing straight up. If you need to watch first and then do the movement. Because turning the head can be a little tricky for the neck muscles. We did all that work at the beginning. So we're gonna scoop and lift the hips up, and I have the weight on my shoulders. My neck is not weighted, okay? So that's what's important. And then we're gonna come down as close to one vertebrae at a time as possible. So this both strengthens the back body, and it also helps us release a little bit of tension from the top of the thigh and the hip flexors, okay? So we're gonna do it 4 more times. Lift. And I like to lift my toes up off the floor while I curl down, because it just lets me kind of curl my tailbone in a little bit more. Inhale, lift, and then exhale and curl down. And you can do these slower than this, but for our purposes here, just to try to create a little bit of balance, this works pretty well. Inhale, lift. Exhale, come down. Again, just be mindful. If it feels like your neck is getting pressure, don't lift as high. All right, and then last one, lift. And I'm really letting my low back come down slow, 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 slow. This last one especially, I like to really feel every vertebrae, and then my pelvis tilts to its little natural shape. All right, so we're gonna just relax for a little bit. We don't always do that on the lunch break classes, but for gentle yoga, it's nice. So I'm gonna put my blanket underneath right close to my hip. You might like your blanket under your knees or not at all. This just lets me have a little bit of softness right there at the hip flexor area, which is so nice. Take a deep breath, let go with an ah. And then just let your body relax. We're only going to stay for a couple minutes, but it's so nice to just give in to gravity for a little bit. You don't have to always be holding up everything. Put the world down. Relax your face. Let your eyes grow a little kinder and softer. yogis, if you want, you can stay longer. I'm not in charge of what happens at your house. But I'm gonna wiggle my fingers and toes and stretch them out and give my whole body a big stretch. And a little back massage, because that feels so nice. And then, if you want to stay, just stay. And you can just listen to my greeting. Otherwise, you can join me. Take a nice big breath. And a big deep sigh. And enjoy the rest of your day. Namaste.